Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about the circumstances that allowed Jussie Smollett to escape justice and get his conviction overturned for staging a hate crime against himself, framing Trump supporters for said hate crime, and unfortunately, due to the corruption in the Cook County District Attorney's Office, specifically from Kim Foxx, who was the Cook County District Attorney, he was able to avoid the consequences of his actions in this regard. But we all know that Jussie Smollett absolutely did do this. He is 100% guilty, but I need to explain why this conviction was overturned, because I think it's crucial for you to understand what was actually ruled on in this particular case. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
The Illinois Supreme Court has overturned the conviction of actor Jussie Smollett.
As Connor Hansen reports, this comes years after he was found guilty for faking a racist and homophobic attack against himself.
So I want to give you guys a quick recap of the Jussie Smollett case, since it was back in 2019, and you guys might not remember it all that well. But essentially, Jussie Smollett claimed that on the night of a polar vortex, where it was minus 17 degrees at 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, he decided to go out for Subway sandwiches because he was hungry, and during the course of time that he was out, he was attacked by evil white racist Trump supporters that were also homophobic and also didn't like him personally.
I'm pissed off. What is it that has you so angry? Is it the attackers?
It's the attackers, but it's also the attacks. It's like, you know, at first it was a thing of like, listen, if I tell the truth, then that's it, because it's the truth. Mm-hmm. Then it became a thing of like, oh, how can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth. And then it became a thing of like, oh, it's not necessarily that you don't believe that this is the truth. You don't even want to see the truth.
Now, I just want to point out the absurdity of Jussie Smollett's story on its face. First and foremost, it was so cold at that evening that somebody carrying bleach around with them would actually have to deal with the consequences of that cold, because the bleach would have frozen at those temperatures. Secondly, Jussie Smollett has such a giant ego. He thinks he's so much more famous than he actually is, even though most people never heard of him until this particular incident, that he believes that people watched his show, knew that he was a gay, and were also racist against blacks, and then hurled that out as a group of insults against him.
And while he was on the phone, I heard, as I was crossing the intersection, I heard Empire. I don't answer to Empire. My name ain't Empire. And I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then I heard Empire. So I turned around and I said, did you just say to me? And I see the attacker masked. And he said, this MAGA country punches me right in the face. So I punched his ass back.
Again, the idea that Trump supporters were watching Empire, following Jussie Smollett on Twitter, so they decided that they were going to show up and wait for him, even though, by the way, his flight was delayed back from New York out in the middle of a polar vortex on the off chance that he was going to go to Subway so that they could attack him, so that they could throw bleach on him, so that they could hang a noose around his neck, is absurd from top to bottom. It is ridiculous in every possible way. It is unbelievable, and anybody who pushed this story should be shamed from now until the end of time. And again, the idea that the Osundaro brothers, who were of Nigerian descent, these two jacked individuals, were beat up by Jussie Smollett because gay boys have more power in their little pinky than you can imagine.
I just want young people, young members of the LGBTQ community, young black children, to know how strong that they are, to know the power that they hold in their little pinky.
Is another absurdity on top of an absurdity. So obviously, Jussie Smollett, 100% guilty in this crime. There's a reason why he was convicted during the trial phase, but the reason for his appeal is due in large part, in fact, due in its totality, to the corruption of Kim Foxx at the district attorney's office.
Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx and her office misled the public time and time again while handling the Jussie Smollett investigation. That, according to a report released today. Earlier this month, Smollett was found guilty of lying about being attacked, but the state's attorneys initially dropped that case, raising some serious questions and doubt from the public.
So if you guys will remember, shortly after the Osendara brothers were arrested for their role in staging this hate crime, we suddenly got word that Kim Foxx was going to recuse herself, but the new prosecutor almost immediately reached a plea deal with Jussie Smollett where he pled no contest to the crimes in which he was charged, and then agreed to forfeit his bond and do community service. Now, this was done fraudulently because Kimberly Foxx did not actually recuse herself. In fact, when you recuse yourself under Illinois law, what you need to do is have a special prosecutor appointed, but instead, what she did, which she does not have the authority to do, was appoint an assistant district attorney to herself to an office that didn't exist in order to work out this plea deal.
Dan Webb was appointed in August of 2019 as special prosecutor. He found Foxx should have appointed a special prosecutor initially instead of delegating her first assistant, Joe McGatz.
I do believe when the public actually gets my report and they can see the actual evidence I had, then I do believe it's a step forward in restoring the public's confidence in our criminal justice system.
And this was documented in the investigation into Kimberly Foxx's actions, along with a bunch of other things that really show the misconduct in which she engaged in. Now, of course, we have her lying about the number of cases and the amount of precedent that backed up the no contest deal that Jussie Smollett got.
Office of the Special Prosecutor's report found misleading and false statements by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, like there were 5,700 similar cases, but the special prosecutor found few examples of similar cases. That $10,000 would be the maximum he could be asked to pay, but Smollett could be forced to pay restitution to the city. That Smollett had no criminal background was not true. He had a DUI in which he lied and got 24 months probation.
So Kimberly Foxx essentially told everybody that there were 5,700 cases that were the similar circumstances and that Jussie Smollett couldn't have been forced to pay more than $10,000 and that there were problems with the evidence and all these other various excuses for why they couldn't pursue criminal charges against Smollett. Now, the local news segment that I just played for you said that they found a few similar cases to Smollett's in order to back up as precedent what the district attorney's office did, but in reality, there were actually 0 cases. When asked to produce them, they had none that actually followed this pattern. So Jussie Smollett got incredibly special treatment from the district attorney's office, and this is because he was very well politically connected. And of course, this sweetheart deal, while it didn't make any sense, while it was granted to him by an office that didn't exist, unfortunately ended up being the undoing for the later convictions of Smollett, which we will go into a little bit further. But first, let's talk about the fact that she said there was no evidence in this particular case, while simultaneously going on television saying that she did have evidence for this case.
And that there were evidentiary problems with the case. But the special prosecutor found in interviews, like an interview Kim Foxx did with ABC 7, where she said they had a solid case against Smollett.
I cannot ask Mr. Smollett to forfeit his $10,000 bond if I didn't believe we could meet our ethical burden in this case.
Then, days later, in an op-ed to the Tribune, reversed that claim, writing, the likelihood of securing a conviction was uncertain.
Now, in addition to everything that I just told you in terms of the misconduct of Kimberly Foxx's office, she also was in communication with Jussie Smollett's sister, and in my opinion, advised her that Jussie would be perfectly fine if he continued to lie to investigators by telling her that Jussie just needs to remain consistent in his story, and then everything will work out for him. This is a level of prosecutorial misconduct that should rise to the level of criminality, but unfortunately that special prosecutor's report about Kimberly Foxx recommended no criminal charges. So why am I bringing this up? Why am I dragging this stuff out into the forefront of this video? Because this is why Jussie Smollett eventually ended up winning on appeal.
In its ruling, the state Supreme Court found the charges violated the actor's rights, since he had already reached a deal with the state's attorney to pay a $10,000 bond and do community service.
Well, the conviction was dismissed on procedural grounds, and it's a pretty significant decision by the Illinois Supreme Court.
One justice acknowledged that many were unsatisfied with the original deal. The special prosecutor behind the stronger charges pointed out the Supreme Court did not not find any issues with the evidence or the verdict in the case.
So in the United States of America, in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights, one of the original Bill of Rights, it can be found in the Fifth Amendment, there is something about double jeopardy. And what double jeopardy does is protect each and every American across this country from facing trial for a crime more than once after that trial has already found a resolution. So essentially what the Illinois Supreme Court ended up ruling is that yes, even though there was clearly and obviously prosecutorial misconduct in this particular case, even though it is illegal for Kimberly Foxx to appoint one of her assistant district attorneys to an office that doesn't exist when she recused herself or fake recused herself in this particular case, the fact of the matter is Jussie Smollett accepted a plea bargain, a plea deal where he pled no contest in open court, received a fine of $10,000 and received community service, and then he paid that fine and did that community service. And because of those facts, he cannot be tried for this crime again because essentially this is an error on behalf of the state and the individual should not have their rights subordinated to the whims of the state just because they can't get their crap together. This was the ruling that the court handed down. It was done on constitutional principles. It was done on this particular technicality, and it should no way be interpreted to say that Jussie Smollett was actually innocent in any way, shape, or form. And here's the thing. I can't stand what Jussie Smollett did. I love the fact that he spent one day in jail, one day, suffering the consequences of his own actions, and he totally freaked out, and then he needed his appeal to go through, and then he got out because he couldn't handle it. Because despite what he said about the strength of little gay boys and their pinky, Jussie Smollett is an inherently weak and cowardly individual.
I want them to see that I fought back. And I want a little gay boy who might watch this to see that I fought back. And it does not take anything away from people that are not able to do that. But I fought back. They ran off. I didn't.
What do you say to a young gay man, a young gay person?
To learn to fight. And I don't just mean like learn to fight. I mean, learn to fight. Learn to be a fighter. I am not advocating violence at all. So let's be clear about that. If you're going to die, fight until you do. Because if you don't fight, you have no chance. I have fought for love.
But that being said, constitutional principles exist for a reason. And the fact is, Jussie Smollett is a horrible precedent already. Jussie Smollett is a perfect example of somebody getting that special treatment by a woke Soros-funded district attorney who, by the way, totally buys in to the Ibram X. Kendi idea that in order to fix this alleged past discrimination against black people, you have to discriminate on behalf of black people. But the thing is, that horrible precedent, those horrible actions, are only made more horrible by getting rid of double jeopardy in the state of Illinois. The court essentially had to rule this way, and this is why I actually agree with their opinion, because when you don't have the money, if you end up being subject to a case where they don't follow procedure, the idea that you could face retrial after you've already entered a plea, after you've already exposed yourself as potentially guilty for this crime, in my opinion, is a price that is too high to pay in order to hold Jussie Smollett for the 150 days that they were trying to hold him. We all know across this country what Jussie Smollett did. We all understand why he was convicted at the trial phase, but that being said, the idea that you would erode a core constitutional position in order to go after Jussie Smollett for a second time, to me, it's a bar that's too high. It's unfortunate in this case. I can't stand it. I can't stand that he is able to still claim that he's innocent and say, oh, I didn't do nothing. I can't stand the fact that Kimberly Foxx was allowed to lie so many times, and I think there should be an investigation into her misconduct. She should be held accountable for this, and by the way, she's no longer the Cook County District Attorney's office. Somebody else is going to take that post, so at least electorally, she may have felt those consequences. But as of right now, this is where we're at in terms of the Jussie Smollett case. It leaves a bitter taste in people's mouths, and I totally understand why, but we still know that he did this. We still know that he is an absolute monster, and I will just remind you that even though this was staged and people say there's no actual victim in this particular case, if there would have been two white individuals in and around this area that vaguely fit the false description that Jussie Smollett put forward, and those people would have been arrested for this, what do you think Jussie Smollett would have done? Would he have blamed them? Would he have sent innocent people to prison on the idea that he couldn't back down from his story, I think he definitely would have. I think what he did was shameful. I think what he did was disgusting. And I think we should tattoo it on his forehead and never forget who he is. And Kimberly Fox, she should go down in the dustbin of history as the worst prosecutor to ever operate in Cook County for actions like this, for pro-criminal actions that she did in office that were less notable. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the overturning of Jussie Smollett's conviction. Till next time.